This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. Open Doors USA has released its annual World Watch list, identifying the top 50 countries where it's most dangerous to follow Jesus Christ. Our senior international correspondent, George Thomas, has been covering the plight of Christians around the world for years and joins me now with more on who made the 2020 list. George.
Thank you, Mark. Well, let us start right at the top. North Korea takes the #1 spot again for the 18th straight year as the worst place in the world for believers. Rounding out the top 10 countries, you can see right there: Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Pakistan, Eritrea, Sudan, Yemen, Iran, and India. According to Open Doors, an average of 8 Christians were killed for their faith every day last year. 23 Christians were raped or sexually harassed in faith-related violence. And on any given week, a shocking 182 churches or church buildings were attacked, and 276 Christian homes burned or destroyed every month. Open Doors says 1 in 8 Christians worldwide live in places where they endure high levels of persecution for simply believing in Jesus Christ. Even as President Trump signed a phase 1 of a new trade deal with China, today Dr. David Curry, president of Open Doors USA, singled out China's, quote, unparalleled human rights crimes against Christians and accused Beijing of seeking to wipe religious sentiment from its country using a dangerous surveillance system. By the way, China jumped from number 43 in 2018 to 23 this year.
China is building what I think is a blueprint, a roadmap of persecution for other regimes around the world. And they're doing it with surveillance, with a social score that measures Christian behavior, attending church, taking your kids to Sunday school, as a negative thing. And they're taking that social score and melding it with surveillance, not just on the street to protect the citizens, but an invasive surveillance inside the churches. And they're shutting down house churches that won't comply, and others as well, arresting pastors that won't play along with their surveillance system.
Dr. Curry says 260 million Christians were affected by extreme levels of persecution last year. That is up from 245 million the year before. Mark.
George, did you have any surprises with this year's list?
I mean, a few. I mean, obviously, #1, North Korea, as I mentioned, 18th straight year in a row. And the situation in North Korea, as we have been reporting here for quite some time, it's a horrific place. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, you cannot pray, you cannot hold a Bible, you cannot evangelize, you face death, imprisonment, torture. It's a horrible place. One of the surprises is that China, and we'll talk about this in a second here, I'm surprised China didn't make the top 10, Mark.
And as you've reported many times, the situation for China's Christians is dire. Open Doors says the government has deployed an extensive surveillance mechanism to watch Christians. What do you know about this?
Well, just as Dr. Curry mentioned there, just imagine it's like a social score. So, Mark, if you take your daughter or your son to Bible school, or you take her to church, or you go to an evangelism event, or you go to friends for a prayer meeting, you get a social score, and it's a negative social score. So if you decide to go help the poor, it's a negative social score. So all of these, they're trying to create a sort of a picture of who you are. If you're a believer, the social score is going to go negative. And in that way, you can get persecuted, arrested, or killed.
What about the trade deal with China? Can the U.S. use that to influence China at all on human rights and religious freedom?
You know, President Trump told our David Brody when he first came into office that the persecution and the plight of Christians around the world was of top concern. He wanted to do everything to protect believers around the world. I hope that tied in with this major trade deal is the ability for the United States to sit down with friends behind closed doors, not in public, not to humiliate the Chinese in public, but in private, to say, listen, what can you do? What can you do? Realize that Christians are not a threat, but a benefit to your country.
You were in India recently. It's number 10 on the list. What sort of persecution are Christians there facing?
They are facing, Mark, tremendous persecution. If you are a Christian, you don't have access necessarily to healthcare, education. You can't run for political office. The Hindu-led BJP government is really coming down hard on this whole idea of conversions. You see people getting baptized. Many of those are Hindu converts, and they're trying to stop this. It's a real dedicated, targeted campaign to make sure that Christians, Hindus, do not leave the Christian faith.
George, in a majority of the top 50 countries, Islamic extremism plays a huge role in the levels of persecution, correct?
It sure does, Mark, and that's the reality. We've been reporting on this for quite some time. Wherever you are a believer in a Muslim country, you face a very, very difficult time. If you are a Muslim and you decide to say, you know what, I'm done with Islam, I'm done with the Prophet Muhammad, and I decide to convert to Christianity, you are in big trouble. You can face arrest, potentially get killed. It is a very, very difficult place, and it's hostile to those who believe in Jesus Christ.
And quickly, how can we pray for our fellow brothers and sisters who suffer for their faith?
Mark, every time I meet them, they always say, listen, don't pray that the persecution goes, but pray that we have the spiritual spine, the spiritual backbone to continue praising our God, continue declaring his famous name in the communities that we live. So pray, as you pray for the believers, just know that they're not asking for persecution to end. They're asking that the Spirit of God would come and continue to give them boldness to preach the good news of Jesus Christ.
An inspiration to everyone. All right, George, as always, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome, sir.
In other news, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi named the House prosecutors for the Senate impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. They include Democrats Adam Schiff of California and Gerald Nadler of New York, who led the House impeachment probe. Pelosi believes the impeachment by the House of Representatives on December 18th will stand because of even more evidence since then.
Time has been our friend in all of this because it has yielded incriminating evidence, more truth into the public domain.
The impeachment charges against Trump include abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, and they're linked to claims he pressured Ukraine to investigate Democrats as he allegedly withheld funding to the country. Trump says the whole thing is a witch hunt, and he was simply asking the Ukrainian president to make sure there wasn't corruption in the government's business before releasing the funding. Democrats faced off last night in Des Moines for a final debate before the Iowa caucuses on February 3rd. The debate itself was relatively mild for the most part, but what happened after the debate is getting more attention. Bernie Sanders appeared to offer to shake Elizabeth Warren's hand, and she appears to reject it. The two then getting into what looks like a serious conversation. It may have stemmed from an earlier comment by Warren about reports Sanders told her in 2018 that a woman could not win the election.
Bernie is my friend, and I am not here to try to fight with Bernie.
Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't say it.
The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women.
The Iowa caucus is still 3 weeks away, and the latest Des Moines Register poll shows Sanders on top, followed by Joe Biden, Warren, and Pete Buttigieg. Bible study teacher Priscilla Shirer is recovering from surgery that happened Monday. She had to have an entire lobe from her left lung removed due to dangerous irregularities. Shirer, a well-loved Bible study teacher, has also starred in hit Christian films like the most recent Overcomer, along with War Room and I Can Only Imagine. She posted on social media that her surgery was delayed due to the recent difficulties her family faced, among them her mother's death in December after a long battle with a rare form of cancer. Their family also lost her dad, Tony Evans's father, in November, and her sister, Beverly Johnson, died in January of last year. Shirer says she and her family are still trusting God despite the difficult times, but do ask for continued prayer. Texas Governor Greg Abbott gave the state's highest civilian honor to 71-year-old Jack Wilson for shooting and killing an armed attacker during a church service in December. Wilson's single shot quickly ended the attack, which killed 2 people in the church. Abbott gave Wilson the governor's Medal of Courage, calling him a hero. He said, quote, only God knows.
God knows who is alive today because of Jack Wilson. What we do know is that so many lives were saved because of Jack Wilson's quick action, his calmness under pressure, and above all else, his courage and his willingness to risk his own life to save the lives of others.
Coming up, a warning for parents with all media and entertainment options out there for children.
Having sex before you're married is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence. That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Digital technology has dramatically changed how families access entertainment. Streaming devices have upended the TV industry, and they provide immediate access to the most vile content that even young children can watch. Tim Winter of the Parents Television Council is sounding the alarm and told Charlene Aaron why parents need to take notice.
Last year, we saw a near total transformation of the TV industry as we know it. Talk about some of the changes that have happened.
Yeah, over the last couple of years, as the streaming platforms become more attractive to children, it's been more difficult than ever for parents to try to monitor the entertainment content that their kids are watching. It's not just the television set in the living room anymore. It's their handheld cell phones, their iPads, their laptop computers. It's reaching children. Entertainment is reaching children through literally in the palm of their hand, wherever they happen to be. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is an increase in the toxic entertainment content, very graphic sexual content, very profane content, full frontal nudity, graphic violence, horrific violence, even themes that encourage suicide, teen suicide as a resolution to life's problems. It's never been more vexing as a parent, and we are sounding the alarm to try to get parents more aware of what's going on out there in today's entertainment media environment.
And Tim, you say that much of, the entertainment that you just mentioned, is actually focused at, they're marketing it to kids. You say that they're doing it on purpose. Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, for years, maybe even for decades, if there was something that was explicit, maybe graphic violence or profanity, that was targeted to adults, if children came across it to Hollywood, that was just collateral damage. It was a parent's fault that if kids were being exposed to stuff they shouldn't, then they would blame the parents. Things have changed in the last year or two. Now you have themes that are heavily attractive, uniquely, inherently attractive to children. Shows about high school and junior high school age children where there's graphic sex, graphic violence, profanity, nudity, some of the most shocking content that a parent would do anything to shield their kids from. Now it's focused on children, and it's being marketed through social media. They're using some very popular Disney Channel characters actors to perform. It's a different landscape now. It's not just that children are collateral damage. They are in the crosshairs.
Tim, you mentioned Disney, and Disney has come up with a new cartoon that teaches kids how to be witches using a demon. Talk about the increase in the use of witchcraft and the occult that we're seeing in entertainment right now.
If you are a family of faith, there is not a whole lot out there that's really positive on the mainstream major Hollywood platforms. It's so unfortunate. You have such a huge population of Americans who are hungry for something positive, something that they can sit and watch together with their children. And there just isn't a whole lot out there. And that's one of the things that we're hoping in 2020, that Hollywood recognizes just how big of a marketplace there is out there for family entertainment, for quality family entertainment. And let's produce more of it.
How do you see them actually, doing better to serve families in 2020?
There are a couple of things they need to do. Number one, just as we said, produce more high-quality family entertainment. Number two, make sure that when they are producing their entertainment content, they rate it properly, put an accurate label on there. Most parents go to the grocery store, look at the back of a box and see what the ingredients are. Right now, when you look at the rating system for movies and television and video games and music and all the other different platforms, they're inconsistent, they're inaccurate, and they usually market explicit content to a younger age group than they should. And lastly, we want to be able to provide parents with technological tools. There are tools available that would allow them to watch a mainstream Hollywood movie and filter out, skip past any profanity, violence, any sexually explicit content, things that a parent could set their controls on their device to skip past the offending material. And unfortunately, Hollywood is suing technology companies into bankruptcy to prevent them from giving this tool to parents. We want an update to the Family Movie Act that will allow parents to stream content and skip past the offensive pieces.
Very, very important information. Tim Winter, thank you so much, very much for being with us today.
Be with you today. Good day from Los Angeles.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the home front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Hundreds of American Christian University students embarked on a recent journey to Israel for a unique learning experience. It's part of a program to increase their faith while also introducing them to a modern and vibrant Israel. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
It's called Passages.
As a Christian, your why is rooted in your faith. And your faith is rooted in Israel.
This big event in Jerusalem with Israeli musicians celebrated the 4th anniversary of this unique educational program for American Christian students.
In 2016, Passages was born to give you, the religious, political, social leaders of tomorrow, an opportunity to come to Israel, to ignite your faith, to connect with the values that the United States shares with Israel, and to strengthen your leadership journey.
Former Israeli Knesset member Michael Oren talked about their connection to the land.
Your faith gives you a part of this land
the land of Israel. It gives you a part of this sacred city.
After talking to students, current U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman told CBN News the trip is invaluable at this time in history.
So to bring these kids here for 10 days and to show them, especially Jerusalem, but all the rest of the parts of the country, it's very, very powerful and very important.
Passages was started by Christian leader Robert Nicholson and Orthodox Jewish Israeli Rivka Kidron.
As I began to become more and more attached to Christianity, I began to see that many people my age and younger were actually going the opposite direction. And I knew that this encounter with the land of Israel could be a remedy for that.
I really believe we're at a unique moment in history where Christians and Jews can come together and really focus on our shared values, not what separates us, but what we have in common together.
Participants travel the land for 9 days, visiting historic biblical sites and seeing the modern state.
With Passages, they offer something unique by diving deep into the geopolitics of the land, trying to provide a diversity of narratives so that students come out of the trip realizing that the media isn't all that there is to the story.
CBN News spent a morning with students from the University of Alabama visiting Jerusalem's City of David.
As Christians, it's important for us to understand what's going on in the world, and so there is a lot of modern-day political conflict here, and so we're getting to hear lots of different perspectives on that and just become educated from a first-hand perspective.
Student leaders Carter Helm and Emily Bernard told us about the value of their visits.
My first tour of Israel had a great impact on my life. It changed the way I read the Bible. It changed my prayer life. It changed the way I think about culture and Judaism and the Hebraic roots of my faith. It had an everlasting impact, I would say.
By the end of this year, Passages will have brought 10,000 students to the Holy Land as part of this program leaders call a game changer in relations between faiths and nations. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No super balls, man. Come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
It's the unforgettable story of four sisters growing up in the post-Civil War era that has captured hearts for generations. The latest big screen edition of Little Women is a hit and has some Oscar nominations to boot. Take a look.
I'm working on a novel. It is a story of my life and my sisters.
Make it short and spicy.
Greta, this is your second solo directing project.
Yeah.
Why this story?
And if the main character is a girl, make sure she's married by the end.
This was my book. This has been in me for so long.
It's what you want too, isn't it, Joe, to be a famous writer?
Yes. I just had such a clear vision for how I wanted to do this, and I The minute this became available, I was like, I better grab it now before anyone tells me I can't have it.
I've always known I would marry Rich. Why should I be ashamed of that?
There's nothing to be ashamed of, as long as you love him.
Well, I believe we have some power over who we love. It isn't something that just happens to a person.
I think the poets might disagree.
Well, I'm not a poet. I'm just a woman.
You're probably one of the biggest male characters in a sea of women. What was that like for you, and how would you describe him?
You know, what a treat to get to work on this book with this amazing cast, Saoirse Ronan, work with Florence Pugh. And I wish every young person or young creative or whatever could see like how actualized it can be when you're as smart and gifted as Greta.
This is Meg, Amy, Beth, and Joe.
I intend to make my own way in the world.
No one makes their own way, least of all a woman. You'll need to marry well.
But you are not married, aren't you?
Well, that's because I'm rich.
What's your first connection or memory to Little Women?
We can leave right now. I'll sell stories.
Sort of felt like it's something that we've all grown up with, really.
Just because my dreams are different than yours doesn't mean they're unimportant.
Mine was not in childhood, but in sort of early teens. And it just broke everything open for me. I think I was old enough to really understand women representing different sides of a woman. And the mother-daughter relationship as an only child raised by a single mom was so huge for me.
He spends all of his time in that house locked up with his tutor.
He's a very kind man who lost his little girl when she was only a child, and now his son as well.
His daughter died? That's so sad.
But doesn't Laurie just seem so romantic? He's half Italian.
I remember I'd go and stay around my grand's house when I was younger, when I was little, and she would read me chapters at nighttime. And I remember when she read the chapter where Amy burns the book. I remember she looked up from the book and she kind of had this like devilish grin on her face. And she goes, "What a wicked, wicked girl."
A new play written by Miss Jo Marsh.
Why do you think this story still resonates to this day? We've seen so many incarnations of this. Why are people wanting more of it?
I think we're in a time of such unrest, and we're longing for internal revolution. While everybody's waiting for the world to change, we're waiting for ourselves to change and be our biggest, most ambitious, most impassioned artist, activist, friend, sister.
They have minds, and they have souls, as well as just hearts.
I need it. I need this movie.
I'm not patient by nature, but with nearly 40 years of effort, I'm learning to not let it get the better of me.
Well, I'll do the same then.
I hope you'll do a great deal better than me.
It's a film about kind men, it's about support, it's about generosity.
And it also reaffirms the importance of art.
I want to be great or nothing.
And they've got ambition, and they've got talent, as well as just beauty.
This is still the conversation we're having, and I thought it's that way. There's a lot of synchronicity in the world, and I thought, this is it. This is it.
And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it.
That's going to do it for this edition of Newswatch. Remember, you can find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.